What is good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're taking a look at the Splatoon 3 reviews roundup, and things are a bit interesting, especially when you compare it to Splatoon 1, Splatoon 2, and the Octo expansion, and just looking at the franchise overall over all of these years. But before we get into anything, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. Now let's go ahead and first jump in to the first reviews of Splatoon 3. And once again, it's very interesting. So far, we have 46 critic reviews. So there's still going to be more reviews as the week goes on. I'm guessing it's going to top out around 80 something reviews or so. So we still have a bit more to go, but usually the initial batch of big reviews is right around where the game is going to stay overall. Now, for those who don't know, what Metacritic does is that it takes all of the different scores from the accredited review sites out there. So anyone who's certified to review games, you're going to see their reviews on Metacritic. Now, it's not the be-all end-all if determining a game is good or not, but it's a nice little aggregate site to kind of look at to verify maybe what some people are thinking about one game or another. But please don't take it as this means X or Y or whatever the case is. It's just nice to kind of see how games do overall. Heck, even some game developers have bonuses built into sales and review scores, so it is important in some cases. Now let's go ahead and take a look here. Out of these 46 reviews, we've got 44 positive reviews. So what that means is that the game has at least a 7.5 or 75 rating or above. Anything that's below that, between I think it's like a 50 something to like 74, 73, is going to be a yellow mixed score. Then anything lower than that is going to be a red score. So the good news is that there are zero, count them, zero negative reviews. That's what you want to see on the big games coming out. Zero negative reviews, only 2 mixed reviews, which we're going to go over those and hear what they have to say, and 44 positive reviews. Very good there. Now let's go ahead and take a look here at the breakdown. Now, I'm not going to be going over every single review, obviously that would take too long, but I'm going to look at a number of the higher scores, the middle scores, and then the lowest scores as well. So far there is one perfect score, and that is from Vooks, and Vooks has this to say on Splatoon 3 with a 10 out of 10 or 100. Splatoon 3, while more of an evolution than a revolution, is the best the series has ever been. Between an utterly fantastic story mode, some great new weapon additions, and tweaks to the tried and trusted formula you've come to know and love, Splatoon 3 is everything you'd hope it would be and more. Some will say that it's just more Splatoon, and that's true, but that's far from a bad thing in a series that has been and continues to be so consistently strong. So they are acknowledging that, hey, this is not something that completely upends the tea table or completely turns things on its head, which it doesn't need to be honest. But what you're gonna get here is the best of the series when it comes to single player, features, content, graphics, all of that. Now, next up, we are going to go to Shack News with a 9 out of 10, and they had this to say on the game. It's pretty fantastic. Thanks to the various additions to the game's multiplayer, the overhaul to the story mode structure, and the implementation of new ideas like the 3-way Splatfest turf war, while I wouldn't call Splatoon 2 old and busted by any means, there's no denying that Splatoon 3 does feel like the new hotness. And I think that's what I was thinking when I played the Splatfest demo. That right there just shows you that they overhauled the multiplayer, because connecting with your friends and playing with your friends when it came to certain modes like the regular non-ranked turf war was a nightmare. The lobbies was a nightmare. Just connecting, there was no invite system to send in there. It just wasn't very good, and this one seems to overhaul all of that. So definitely a good thing there. Now next up is a 9 out of 10 from Nintendo Life, and here's what they have to say. Splatoon 3 is more of the same, but refined to the borderline of mechanical perfection. It is the most fun we've had with an online shooter in years, and for series veterans, it makes Splatoon 2 feel entirely redundant for all but its unique single-player content. It feels like the development team has solved every problem the Splatoon community was bleeding on about, and then fixed some more that we didn't even realize were problems until they were fixed. There's nothing revolutionary about it compared to its predecessors, and it's perhaps missing a big new idea, trademark, that you can expect after 5 years, but Splatoon 3 is the pinnacle of the series and the pinnacle of shooters on Switch. So there you go. Once again, I think that we're kind of seeing a common theme here, is that don't expect anything too crazy from what you've got before, but what you're going to get is pretty much the best in all aspects, fixing many of the big issues that people had with Splatoon 1 and also Splatoon 2. Now let's go and get into some of the 80s scores here. VG247 had this to say about Splatoon 3. Both previous games had surprisingly strong online offerings, and it's possible the third game's lack of new ideas might be addressed in the coming months as Splatoon 3 embraces its nature as a rolling service game. Regardless though, the launch day package is a definitive Splatoon offering and a very easy recommendation. So once again, same kind of theme. It's like, hey, doesn't really reinvent things going on here, and there isn't that new big game idea or game mode, but what you're going to get is a refined package here that hits all of the check marks across the list and is also very good. Next review is from Twinfinite, and they gave it an 8 out of 10 and had this to say: Splatoon 3 is a small fry step forward in the series. It doesn't take the leaps and bounds from the previous titles that would have taken it to the next level, but honestly Splatoon 2 was a pretty hard game to follow up on. Splatoon 3 is the same reliable, fun franchise has always been, and is much needed improvements that fans clamored for, but players should just be aware of how much new content there actually is before committing to purchasing. So very interesting on that front, talking about the content wise, because it seems like content wise Splatoon 3 has done a better job than pretty much every single modern big shooter that we've seen recently come out there, like maybe even like Battlefield or a Halo or even other Nintendo offerings like Mario Strikers that people complain about. So very interesting on that front, because it seems like Nintendo offered more content than a lot of these previous games. Now next up, we're gonna go ahead and get into some 7 reviews from WCCF Tech. They gave it a 75 or a 7.5 and had this to say: Splatoon 3 may be the series' best entry yet, featuring some nice gameplay tweaks and new weaponry, an expanded and polished story mode, and more launch content than its predecessors. That said, it's very much an evolutionary sequel, every bit as iterative as many of the shooter franchises it's meant to be an alternative to. After a 5-year absence that may not be enough for some, Splatoon 3 is still fun and funky, but Nintendo's Squid Shooter series can't get by on freshness alone forever. So they are knocking it essentially just for not reinventing the wheel when it comes to it, because maybe they're thinking that it should have been more compared to what other shooters do that have multiple series entries. So interesting takes, but definitely a valid one if you're thinking from that thought process. Next up is a 7 out of 10 from MGG, and here's what they have to say. Now this is actually one of the mixed reviews with the 7 out of 10. Nintendo does not take any risks with Splatoon 3 that is far too close to its predecessor on many points, a predecessor that a sequel that was already lacking in notable novelties compared to the original Wii U title. This is all the more frustrating as the gameplay is still very pleasant to play. The charm of its very special formula remains intact. As far as content is concerned, if we put aside new weapons, it's mainly the solid single-player campaign full of good ideas that manages to raise the bar of this lackluster episode. So it's interesting. It seems like this person is weaving in like, oh, this is really good, with maybe it's not really good. I'm not really sure based off of what he had to say here, because it's, oh, great single-player campaign, great good ideas, but lackluster episode. It's like, wait, what? Okay. Maybe I need to read that one again. But either way, his opinion on that one, MGG with the 7 out of 10. Now, next up is VGC. I think that's Video Game Chronicle. This is the worst score for Splatoon 3. The worst score, so let's go ahead and get into what they had to say. It's not very long here. While it's weird to see Nintendo deliver such a safe sequel, there's no denying the continued pull of Splatoon's splotchy skirmishes. Seasoned inklings can dive straight in, casual dabblers might find it a bit bare. So very interesting. I'm not exactly sure where this lack of content stuff comes from, or bare when it comes to what you can do in the game, especially since what they've shown off in there. I'm actually like generally confused because we do know about all of the modes and the content in there, what they do offer, and it seems like it's considerably more than what we've seen with many other shooters that have gotten better scores. So it's very interesting to see that there's bear on content and all that when we know about all the stuff that's in there, and it seems to be more than a lot of other big games. I do remember one time, just to give you guys a little bit of an example, I remember back when the original Overwatch came out and I didn't read the reviews or anything, and I thought that there was like a single player campaign and co-op and mini games or other stuff, and I remember buying it and looking for that stuff so much in the menu, and it was just like never there. And I know at this point now Overwatch has a ton of content, but at launch, I was like, yo, where's like anything else to do in the game? There was like nothing else but like moving a payload or something like that back and forth. But people said that that game's incredible. It's so great. It's awesome. It has all these things. And I'm just like, oh, okay. It must just be me. Maybe I don't know these Western shooters like people here in the West do. So I think it's very interesting when it comes to what is defined, how people think about sequels and what it gets. I know the other thing that's been like a running joke on the Spawncast. If you haven't seen the Spawncast, or if you don't know what I'm talking about, make sure you check out Spawn Wave John. We have a podcast that we run every single Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. I'm on that. And it's so funny because on there, we've been making jokes about, well, is Splatoon 3 going to get a better review score than Halo Infinite? Because Halo Infinite launched with such bare amount of content and the single player later, and you know, not a lot of updates and stuff like that. There wasn't a lot. We thought there was going to be more. The base gameplay was awesome, but it was pretty bare at launch when it comes to content, but people still gave it a great score based off of the idea that it was going to get more. And now we're looking at it and it's like, oh wow, it's multiple points underneath what Halo Infinite did, despite Halo Infinite launching the type of way that it launched. So I'm not exactly sure what needs to happen here or what the reviewers say when it comes to sequels. So it's interesting to see the dynamic when it comes to what some people are expecting with certain games compared to other games and what maybe some people want in them. It's always interesting. And I just find it fascinating for a sequel, especially a sequel like Splatoon that's super competitive. I think that a new single player campaign and some of the other stuff is pretty much all you can do in addition to improving the graphics. I do feel though, if there's one area that I feel that there's a reason why it's getting knocked down a bit, is that there definitely should have been at least 1 or 2 new game modes. I think that should have been something that should have been in there at launch. Now they do have a new single player campaign. They do have the salmon run that's 24/7 now. You can play that at any point. They do have the new little block mini game type of stuff that you can do as well. There's still plenty of content in there, but for the actual battles, I do feel that the online multiplayer should have had at least 1 or 2 different new modes. I think that if they could have brought in a brand new mode that really would have kind of mixed things up just a bit, I feel that some of these scores would have been a bit better. But maybe there wasn't any good ideas, or maybe that they're still working on what they have to do. It's been 5 years though. So I think that's where the major issue was for a lot of people, and that's completely valid. And I agree with that. There should have been at least 1 new mode in the game, but I do feel that they could at least add it going forward, just because they did add the Clam Blitz mode. Some people love that mode. I'm not in love with it at all, but at least they added that new mode. So maybe they add something in at some point. We know that we're going to get updates for the next couple years in this game. I guess you could count maybe the triple Splatfest type of stuff, but remember, that's only during the Splatfest that you can do that. So we'll see what they do going forward. But to me, for a shooter that's going to continue getting new content and getting better and better with updates, this is a fantastic start. Very good reviews, great scores. Now, if you compare this game to Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 2, Splatoon 1 on the Wii U back in 2015 had an 81 score. Splatoon 2 back in 2017 on the Nintendo Switch had an 83 score. The Splatoon 2 Octo expansion, which was the single player DLC for Splatoon 2, had a 82. So Splatoon 3 sits right there at an 84. The best of the series so far, even if it's just by a bit. Hey, it's still an improvement. So what do you guys think about Splatoon 3 and the review roundup here? 84 so far, maybe even going up based on more reviews that come in. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.